You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein On Gelt Show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein On Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have back on the Goldstein On Gelt show #1 New York Times best-selling author Michael Moss. If you didn't hear him on the Goldstein On Gelt show previously, make sure you listen to that interview. You can download or listen to that interview, as with all of our interviews, by going to YouTube and look up Goldstein On Gelt and Michael Moss. Michael wrote a fantastic book called Salt, Sugar, Fat. He won the 2014 James Beard Foundation Book Award. Michael, a real honor to have you back.
Great to talk to you again.
So your book was, well, in certain ways revolutionary, and in other ways a little bit painful, because it meant a lot of people couldn't eat the food that they liked. Give us a one-sentence summary of what your main goal was in writing that book.
It was to, go inside the underbelly of this $1 trillion processed food industry and give people a sense of how hard these companies are driving to get us to not just like their products, but to want more and more of them. And with that knowledge, give people sort of the power to sort of make their own decisions about what to eat and how much to eat. And it's that empowerment that I'm really hoping that people take away from the book, as opposed to angst and fear and, oh my God, why am I craving this latest, junk food?
All right. Hey, that was very good for one sentence. Really, your book has turned out to be rather disruptive, and mostly, I would say, or possibly very disruptive to the food industry as a whole. Since the publication, only about 1.5, 2 years ago, have you seen any changes in the food industry?
I've seen two things. I've seen kind of the most capable companies really engage their people to take a serious look at reformulating their products. And Nestle comes to mind. It has been, in certain years, the largest food company in the world. One of its former food engineers calls it the Swiss bank that prints food. It's so wealthy in terms of resources. They have 350 PhDs working on food formulations. And I went to visit them actually just this past summer, and they made a huge impression upon me of how hard they are trying to dial back on salt, sugar, and fat in all of their products.
Well,
and
if they do that, how's that going to affect their bottom line?
Well, as they will say, we are not a philanthropy. If you want that, go visit the WHO down the road in Geneva. But, we're a company. We're about making money. But I think that they are a company with enough kind of financial leeway to make some bets on products that will both sort of satisfy people, but also move them a little bit down the line of eating more healthily. I mean, Nestle is a company that sort of touts its adherence to helping people eat healthier. And so of all of these companies, it's part of their mantra. And I think that they can, more than other companies that are more beholden to Wall Street, they have the resources to take the time and the energy to try to come up with those products that are both appealing and won't, kill you dead, all too quickly.
Is there an axiom that the food that you really do crave has to include these unhealthy ingredients, salt, sugar, fat?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because one of the points I try to make out is, look, there's nothing wrong with salt, sugar, fat. It defines, a significant part of my budget, the diet budget. The problem is that the deep reliance on these companies to use so much salt, sugar, fat as their foundation for making foods convenient and low priced and utterly resistible. So certainly, though, part of the equation here moving forward is dialing back a little bit about salt, sugar, fat. But I have to tell you, Douglas, that after about a year of talking about the book, I kind of realized that where I used to think that reducing the amount of salt, sugar, fat was the way forward and the answer, I'm not thinking that anymore, because when you talk to nutritionists, at least the really smart ones, salt, sugar, fat is not the first thing that rolls off their tongue. The first thing they will tell you as kind of the goal, as rather the path toward healthier eating for almost all of us, is to double down on our vegetables and our fruits. Certainly here in the United States, we all need to be eating on average twice as much, and that's true for me too. And that's where these companies are really, really struggling, because where they can rather easily dial back on salt, sugar, fat by 10 or 20 or 30%, in part because they were adding so much to begin with, going to Nestle and saying, what are you doing to create a hot pocket, right? In reference to that microwavable snack food that I likened in the book to a poster boy for the obesity crisis, because it's mindless, big calorie eating. What are you doing to create a hot pocket that's just stuffed, with radishes and broccoli rabe and Brussels sprouts and those things, and yet is sort of still craveable to that 20-year-old, late teenage, early 20 or something mind that's so wired for salt, sugar, fat. That's the real difficult thing for these.
And that's the real hard thing for them to do. We're talking with Michael Moss, who wrote a fantastic book called Salt, Sugar, Fat. He's a repeat customer on the Goldstein on Gelt show. The first time we spoke to him, he was telling us a lot of the basics and the concepts behind the book. And of course, it's important to realize that this is a finance show, and we're always trying to look at what the bottom line is that our guests are talking about. So one of the things, Michael, that I think is important to really dive into is how easy is it to change the habits of consumers and, as a result, the suppliers, so that there continues to be a profit model that works for the companies but maybe doesn't kill the consumers?
It's really, really hard because, look, we all tend to shop. We all tend to want to shop by health, but you walk in the grocery store or you go online to order groceries, which more and more people are doing these days. And, it's those taste buds, it's that sensory appeal, it's those sort of memory tracks in your brain about the food that you had that's going to drive you to sort of buy those, by and large, sort of junkier products. And the allure of the junkier food is just really, really strong. These are deep habits to break. But here's the other fascinating thing that's been happening just in the past couple of years. People in Silicon Valley, really smart tech guys backed by huge venture capital money, are basically looking at the food system in the world like they looked at telecom back in the 1970s. So instead of seeing these big food giants truly innovating, doing a bunch of research and R&D to improve their products, what you see are these dozens and dozens of startup ventures on a shoestring taking big risks to kind of rethink and, to use that awful word, disrupt the food system everywhere from the farm to transportation to warehousing to the way that you buy your groceries and then store the produce, for example, in your kitchen. And I think that what we're going to see in the next 5 years are these small little companies doing the kind of innovating and thinking about the ways that they can help us change our eating habits. And then probably what you're going to see are the food giants buying these companies up, because
and then shutting them down.
I think they have institutionally lost the ability to innovate and to invent. In fact, I've heard that from many of their own people. It's a great frustration.
We certainly see that in many industries. Listen, I think from what I understand, the average piece of produce that you eat has traveled 1,500 miles before it actually hits your plate. So no wonder that these things lose flavor over time, and it's much more exciting to eat Doritos or peanuts that are yummy and salty and fatty.
And we're about to find that out in a huge way in the United States, because 80 or 90% of our produce comes from California, which is just, going into what seems to be a really long-term drought. And so the question is, where's the R&D, the resources to help farmers convert from growing corn for high fructose corn syrup, which they do all over the country, to growing broccoli, on the East Coast.
Well, if they need the technology, they should definitely be coming to Israel, where We export a huge amount of agro-tech. And the fact is, Israel is a desert, and we converted the desert, which California is now becoming, into an amazing agricultural producer. Frankly, what I find is interesting when I get the chance to travel quite a bit, and I don't even know how to define this, but maybe you have the right terms for it. In Israel, mostly we eat local produce, and we have a huge, we have seasons here, and we believe in seasons, so we only eat what's in season. And it seems to always taste much better than when I go to New York and I eat, the cucumbers that seem all artificial, almost as artificial as the Doritos. So is it possible to create or recreate a society where people eat local and the food actually tastes better?
I think so. Although if your goal is to double our consumption of vegetables, and I've been sort of wrestling this question now. I mean, so to what extent does that goal conflict with eating local in season, right? So you've got the melon from Monsanto that's grown in Central America, and they're designing it now to be more luscious and you can buy it year round, right? Is that what you want to kind of drive toward? Or do you want to shift people to another produce in the winter and something that will hold them over until the fantastic joy of that vine ripened summer tomato, which is just kind of extraordinary? That's a real dilemma I've been sort of wrestling with in my own mind and with my own family and trying to figure out our own eating habits.
Well, I'll invite you to Israel, and whatever season you come, we'll be happy to feed you the fruit and the vegetables in season. Michael, we're just about out of time. We've been talking to Michael Moss, who is really an expert in not only the food industry from the diet standpoint, but also from the business standpoint, and that's why we've enjoyed having him on the Goldstein on Gelt show on more than one occasion. And I hope we'll have you back to talk about the research that you're working on now. Any chance you could give us a little hint what you're working on, and finally wrap up with how people can keep tabs of what you're doing?
So the next book is called Hooked, Food and Free Will. It's going into sort of the deep science and legal battle over food and the question of whether junky food especially is in fact addictive for many people. And I'm hanging out these days at michaelmossbooks.com, and I'm tweeting at Michael Moss C for my middle name, and I'd love to have any of your listeners have a look and sign on. And by the way, congratulations with the success of your book. It's doing fantastic, I hear, and it's so great talking to you.
Michael, I really appreciate it. We will put links to your websites and the Twitter feed at the show notes of today's show at goldsteinongelt.com. Michael Moss, thanks so much again.
Great talking.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt show.